Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're taking on a simple project. This axe I had broke, so we're gonna fix it. I'll be showing you a pretty simple way to do it that works with modern hatchets, as well as kind of explaining the basics on how to fix hatchets properly. For today, I already have a handle. This is a cheaper one that you can get online. It comes with this plasticky varnish, which isn't great, but it can be pretty easily removed, and I'll show you how. First things first, we need to remove this shiny varnish. It's not great and it will give you blisters if you leave it on, so that'll be the first thing we take off. There's a few methods to doing it. The way I like to do it is just to very simply scrape it with a knife. Place a semi-sharp blade more or less flat and scrape down and up, and you'll notice bits of that plastic start to come off. Just be patient, take your time, be careful, and it'll come off just fine. Here, sharper blade. But just grab it, scrape away, and you'll see bits of plastic start to come off. You're just going to go all the way around the entire piece so you get all that varnish off. We went ahead and scraped most of the coating off, but just to get that last little bit, we're going to start with this 100 grit sandpaper. Move on to this, I think it's a 120 grit sand sponge, I'm actually not 100% sure. And then this very fine sanding sponge. You can use regular sandpaper, or you can even just leave it as is with just your knife work, but I like to make it a bit smoother. So let's get started. And that's usually where I'd like to stop. I mean, you can always keep sanding to make it smoother and smoother and smoother, like this is a magic eraser. But that's a little overkill realistically. We don't want it to be glass, it still needs to have some grip to it, so we don't want to be too smooth with this. So for the next part of this, we need to sand this head. This is a head that's been sitting for a while, so it's got quite a bit of rust on it. So especially these top sections here really need some love, some attention. So same thing as before, I've got this 100 grit. I'm going to just use that especially on the harsh areas, these sections that really need it. As for the rest, I'm not going to touch it with the 100 grit because it's just going to be overkill. So we've got most of the bigger sections of rust out. I'll polish it when we're done, just that way we can hit everything at once, but that'll be it for the most part. So, next up, we need to go ahead and mount the head of the axe to our handle. So fortunately, this one already lines up very, very well. The idea is that the bottom of the eye should slide at least, I'd say, a quarter of the way on without much resistance. From there, it shouldn't be able to just easily slide in and out. You have to beat it on just so that way it holds its shape. An easy way to tell where it's touching is actually just smacking the head of the axe on, and that way when you pull it off, you can see the marks of where it's rubbing. From there, you can just sand it down either using sandpaper, a grinder, a knife, it doesn't matter. For today, I'm going to use sandpaper just because I already have it next to me. What we need to work on next is a wedge to fill that gap. This one's already pre-cut, so you can see there's a gap here for the wedge, but we still need to make something to fill that space. That way it fills up the entire eye of the axe. Today I'm probably going to make it out of this spare walnut I have, mostly because it's rather pretty. I've also got a bit of oak if I want to add some flavor. Got the wedges done. I've got 2 of the walnut here. You can see that. 2 of the walnut and 1 of the oak. So I can already hear you asking, what do you need 3 wedges for? Because traditionally you'd only need 1. Just 1 right down the middle, call it a day. But we're gonna do something a little different for this one, just because I think it'd look nice. So what we're going to do is a 3-part wedge. The way it's going to work is you'll have the 2 in the front. 1 in the front, 1 in the back, and a middle section instead of just going the same direction. Oops, sorry. Gotta actually show you guys 1 in the front, 1 in the back. We're going to do 1 across like this. That way when everything's all lined up together inside the head of the axe, it should look something like this. But to do that, we need to make a few changes. Primarily, we need to cut a notch right down the center. So to do that, I'm just going to move all of our wedges out of the way. To do that, I'm going to mark it first with a knife, just so we can kind of have an idea. I'm going to mark that cut, and then go in with a handsaw and make the cut. Should be nice and simple. Perfect. And we're not going to go very deep with this. We're probably only going to go to right about here as far as the depth of the cut. So now we've cut the notch. You can see in here we've cleared out the space. So with this cleared, we can now insert the wedges. But before we do that, we have to mount the head to the handle. So conventional thought would be just pound on the top until it gets to the right spot. But what we're actually going to do is flip it over. The reason this works is because of the laws of physics. For this to move, you have to impart a force that overcomes its weight, and then it will move. The same law of physics applies to the handle. Because the handle is lighter, it will always move first. So, by placing it on top, getting it into the right spot, and pounding the handle, they will both move. The handle will always move first, and it will slowly drive itself onto the head. From there, you can actually install the wedges. So let's do that real quick. Let's move the camera. You guys will get to see a bit more of me in my room. But it's going to be very simple. I've got this hammer. Granted, you can use any kind of hammer. I've got this cross beam, nice and heavy. Starting off by tapping that into place. I'd like to just get it on there with my hand just to start with. Then from there, nice and easy, give it a light little tap. And it'll slowly start to work itself on. So we go tap, tap, check, tap, tap, check, check again. Oh, and we're almost there. Got just a little bit left to go. Just a tiny bit left. And that is all the way on. Give it one little tap just to make sure we're all the way set. Yeah, that's good. And you can hear the difference when you're beating on it. As you hit it, the sound will change. Once it stops ringing, it just makes a hollow thunk, then you're done. It won't go any further. But there she is. So if you wanted to make this easy, you could just mount the center wedge and just call it done. That's if you wanted to make this easy. We're going to be a little bit more complicated, just admittedly, for style points. So ideally you'd either have a wedge or a chisel, just force that in there and pry it open a little bit, give it a little bit of breathing room. I actually don't have a chisel, so pocket knife. So we're just going to try and slide it in there very carefully. Press down, give a little wiggle. Do the same thing again. Press in, down. Give a little wiggle. We're just trying to get that wood to open up just a little bit. Here on the front I don't have to because it's nice and loose, but on the back section, which is what will happen the vast majority of the time, you're gonna have to press that in, wiggle it a little bit, and just give some room for your wedge. So that's nice and opened up now. We've got our wedges. Let's slide the middle one first just to make our life a little easier. Sorry, I'm trying to do things on screen. Here's one. Here's number 2. And this one should be number 3. So, now you get the basic idea of what we're going to do next. Now I'm just going to grab my hammer and tap these into place. gonna break this fucking light if I keep smacking the table. It's fine. Like every couple of hits, I'm gonna kill the light on accident. So we got these most of the way in, which is exactly what we want. A little tap tap, just keep everything straight. But I think it's actually, I think these are good to cut now. It's a little hard to see because my light started dying when I was hitting it. But you can see how it's sticking up just a little bit, which is what we want. So these are only sunk probably right about to here, which is again what we want. We don't want these to go all the way through because then they're going to create a weak point at the bottom. So about halfway is what I like to do. Now the final step for this is nice and simple. Just cut off the excess. Another thing we can do is just to sand this down to make it a little smoother, which is probably exactly what I'm going to do. So get that nice and smooth. There's a little bit of gappage right there, but I'm happy with it. So now this is solid. This is not going anywhere. Another step a lot of people will take is they'll put a steel pin or another steel wedge in here. I'm actually not going to do that for two main reasons. One, this is already secure enough as is. And two, I ran out and I don't want to get any more. But more importantly, I like the way that looks just without it. I think it has kind of a cool cross look, which with what comes next, as far as prettying this up, might be kind of fitting. Especially because the Norse, they very much adopted Christianity. But either way, so far, this is where a lot of people will stop. This is normally where I would stop too. For just a regular daily use hatchet, this is good enough. This is where I would just stop messing with it. I call it a day. I retool the edge, make it nice and sharp. Then from there, you either get to chopping or you get to throwing. Either way, this is good. But because we can, we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit more to this axe. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the head a bit more, give it some polishing. I'm going to leave these notches in just because of how deep they are. I don't want to take the edge down too much. So we'll leave that. We'll give the head some sanding. And then I'm thinking we take this opportunity to burn something rather intricate here on the handle. But that seems like a good project for tomorrow.